you're graduating soon, the UK job market probably feels like this. Let's talk about the trends and realities that will impact students in 2026. The depressing bits, the rage-inducing bits, and most importantly, the parts you can actually control. The last one is the one no one really talks about. Hi, I'm Mary. I've spent over a decade in Big Four audit and MBB strategy consulting in London, where I was also involved in student and MBA recruitment and mentorship. The first uncomfortable reality is that there simply aren't enough graduate jobs, and the competition is as bad as they say. 20 years ago, there were 40 applicants for one graduate role. In 22-23, it was closer to 86. By 2024, it was around 140 applications for one place. And no, that hasn't improved going into 2026, as the Institute of Student Employers forecasts an even further decline, with an overall 7% reduction in graduate hiring. What's changed underneath the headline is far more important. Industries that used to hoover up graduates through big structured schemes have quietly cut their numbers. Professional services is a big one. In some cases, they've cut their UK graduate scheme intakes by almost a third in the last few years. This is usually the point where students start blaming themselves and start tweaking their CVs. In reality, the odds are not ever in your favor. If your strategy is to apply everywhere and hope something sticks, you're up against people who treat applications as a part-time job with their color-coded spreadsheets and Notion templates. They're not wrong. A systematic approach does help. Most students go through something like 5 stages of grief here, starting with denial, into anger, into bargaining, then depression. But you really need to reach the last stage, acceptance. Not in a defeatist way, rather in a practical way. You're allowed to think the system has to change, it probably should, but it isn't going to change in time to make a difference to the fact that you have bills, student loans, or that growing up on your CV. Bills and electricity don't care about fairness arguments. So if you are graduating soon, the sensible move is to play the game that exists, not the one that you wish existed. Sitting this one out just because it feels hopeless will be one of the most expensive choices that you make. So what can you do about it? The upside is that most applicants are playing quantity, not quality game. Focusing on quality produces deeper research, an efficient and targeted approach to finding suitable roles, and better prep with industry-tailored CVs, cover letters, and networking. All these make your application stand out from the crowd, and that alone fixes more than people usually expect. Which brings us to the second truth. AI is already everywhere. Students are using it, recruiters are using it. So the question isn't whether you should use AI. Not using it at this point is basically opting out. The real question is how you use it without quietly sabotaging yourself. We have all developed a new sense. Is this AI slop? And yes, there is a clear difference between productive use and harmful use. Harmful looks like pasting your entire CV into a tool, accepting whatever comes out, and then automating your workflow to spam dozens of identical applications a day. They will not sound polished, they will sound soulless. When an application is AI generated end-to-end, it reads smoothly, it ticks all the boxes, and yet somehow it says nothing. No friction, no opinion. Just a homogeneous, bland goop of sameness. 10 candidates start to blur into one competent blob. So what can you do about it? Ironically, it's the candidates who use AI less that stand out more, because their responses sound human, imperfect, like they actually care. But notice how I say use AI less, not don't use AI at all. Productive AI use is using it as your thinking partner, maybe expanding your company research, brainstorming interview questions to practice, stress testing your examples. You don't beat automation by pretending it's not there. You beat it by understanding how it's used. Applicant tracking systems filter and rank applications, and some companies are using AI to summarize candidates or score their performance on pre-recorded interviews before a human recruiter actually sees the application. This has 2 practical consequences. 1. Smaller companies often have more human involvement early on simply because they're not drowning in volume. They will definitely notice an application that sounds more human. And 2, getting advice from somebody who got hired last year will trump any generic advice you might find on the internet. Ask alumni, ask people a few years ahead of you, Copy their strategies intelligently. How did they research the less known graduate schemes? How did they get feedback on their applications? How did they practice for their interviews? Third reality is the famous meme of entry-level jobs asking for 5 years of experience. This is where a lot of people want to rage quit. A lot of companies didn't just reduce graduate roles, they shifted the risk away from them. Instead of hiring 20 grads and training them properly, they hire 10 and expect them to be productive faster. And that effectively changes what entry-level means in practice. This is why a lot of graduate job descriptions sound confused. They want a fresh graduate, and yet they're looking for somebody who's messed things up once or twice and learned from it. And sure, internships and spring weeks sound useful, but they're not mandatory. This is not what the employers actually mean when they ask for experience, even if the wording suggests otherwise. When a job listing mentions experience, the recruiter who wrote it is probably just asking, can I put this person in a mildly stressful situation without having to babysit them? That's it. That's the test. Most of the time they mean life experience, situations where things didn't go smoothly and you learned anyway. Part-time work, group projects, sports, societies, volunteering, side hustles. You lived it, you learned from it, and you're less likely to make the same mistakes again. Think about it. For a client-facing graduate role, who would you trust more? Someone who spent the summer waiting tables, dealing with angry customers at 10 p.m. and learning to keep their cool? Or someone who attended the spring week in their first year and mostly sat through presentations about company values? So what can you do about it? If you're thinking, I don't really have extracurriculars, you're going about it the wrong way. Don't look at what you have or don't have. Look at job descriptions for roles you genuinely want. What skills do they actually need? Good communication, ownership, problem solving, working under pressure. You likely already have most of these skills. So from which experiences did they come? Can you tell a specific story that proves it? If some skills are weak, what can you do in the next 3 months or so to get them? Where do other people get these skills? And if someone tells you that they got all these skills from one summer internship, you both know that they're not being serious. Sometimes the honest answer is that you do need to go out and get more experience. That is not a personal failure. And if you're still at university, you can use that time to start something new. Maybe a blog or a coding project or even a society. And if you've graduated already, take a job that isn't perfect. Maybe some project-based work like a contractor or a freelancer. Volunteer strategically. The point is, get experience and go for an upgrade in your next job. Or depending on your goals and circumstances, further study might buy you time and structure. It's not always the wrong move. You might not like the fourth truth, because very few people feel comfortable tooting their own horn. But here it is anyway. Most students don't really know how to stand out. And that's not a character flaw. First of all, it's very un-British to toot your own horn. Writing a CV or a end-of-year self-evaluation or a business case for a promotion feels cringe even to an experienced professional. And secondly, you might genuinely believe that there is nothing that makes you stand out. That's unlikely to be true. It's just nobody teaches this whole application game properly. So what you end up doing is spraying and praying your applications everywhere and hoping something sticks. In most cases, when you hear about a graduate applying to over 500 jobs, that is likely the reason. Can you really meaningfully apply to that many jobs with proper consideration and research? So what can you do about it? Standing out usually starts with specializing, narrowing down to 1 or 2 industries or types of roles. It feels scary to limit your options, but counterintuitively, it actually makes application process faster. This is economies of scale at play. You understand the industry better, what the day-to-day role entails, what the trends and news are, and what skills are most important. You know what to empathize. Networking stops being awkward because you're no longer asking vague questions. And this is also why you keep hearing about tailored CVs, because then they address exactly the requirements of that industry. Your application answers become more detailed and more researched, and your interview answer quality stands out from other candidates as you become more confident in your knowledge. Some skills are consistently underrepresented in graduates. If you identify those and genuinely build them, you suddenly look rare. And a quick side note about cover letters. They are often optional, but to stand out, you need to take every opportunity you can get. Your CV will not tell the story of your motivation, your research, your passions. It really paints you as a human, a real person. And sometimes that might be enough to flip an emotional switch in the recruiter's brain to move you on to the next stage and get the interview invite. And finally, the boring and yet so underrated fifth truth. Career services can help a lot more than most students let them. Many students underuse them because they either don't know what's on offer or they expect long philosophical conversations about life direction. In reality, most career services aren't set up for that. They are small teams catering to tens of thousands of students. The system isn't perfect, and universities should really do more to explain the role of the university career services. In the current graduate job market, it is real responsibility for them to actually explain the realities to their first years more proactively. An 18-year-old fresher might not be thinking about careers, but a 22-year-old graduate is kicking themselves they didn't think of it sooner. Career services can do a much better job demystifying what experience actually means, and they need to be more proactive in giving their guidance to the students. And they need to bring in more recent graduates to talk about what it's like to get hired in the current reality, a view from the trenches, if you will. So what can you do about it? What university career services are good at is targeted help, CV feedback or interview prep for a specific role. Here's the role I'm applying for, here's the CV I'm using, what are the weaknesses? And then also go and ask them what else is on offer. Access to paid tools your university already subscribes to, like psychometric test practice platforms or job boards like Bright Network or Student Circus for international students. Access to alumni networks. Find someone who is in your dream job already and ask them how they got there. Workshops and industry-specific career mentors. These actually work if you show up, listen, and act on the advice. And if they don't yet offer what you need, well, take the initiative in your own hands, because it is your life and your career after all. Ask them to provide more if you don't see something that's clearly needed, like AI upskilling. Give feedback, push a bit. You will either get better support or you will discover some resources that were there all along. Tuition fees are astronomical, and university career services are part of the marketing package of your university. And there is a budget there, and they genuinely want to help you. Sometimes they just don't know how, so tell them. And if you have any specific questions or thoughts, please share them in the comments. I read and reply to them all. The graduate job market is competitive, and it's not going back to how it was anytime soon. You can't control that, but you can control how you respond. There is another video on the screen that builds on this. Like this video so other students who need it actually see it, and subscribe for more career deep dives. Keep going, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!